plan it to the best of your ability and be ready for it to all go sideways, and be confident in your ability to adapt and keep moving.
Welcome to another episode of the Good Enough Mompreneur Podcast. I'm your host, Angela Mishuli. Today, we have the privilege of sitting down with a truly remarkable guest, Lisa Levy. Lisa is not only a 3-time best-selling author, but also the visionary founder of future-proofing Lcubed, a platform that helps businesses thrive in an ever-changing landscape. She's also the host of her own podcast, Disrupt and Innovate. Lisa's expertise lies in future-proofing businesses, a topic that is more relevant than ever in our rapidly evolving world. In this conversation, we're going to delve into the 3 core challenges that businesses often face: the vital role of productivity, profitability, and processes, and how to leverage project management principles to enhance your business. Lisa will also share insights on recognizing when it's time to adapt to your processes, building effective teams, and embracing change as a catalyst for innovation and growth. We'll explore the unique strengths of women, too, in leadership, and discover Lisa's main message for listeners on future-proofing their businesses. This episode is packed with wisdom and actionable strategies that can transform your business, making it more resilient and adaptable in the face of change. So get ready to gain invaluable insights from Lisa Levy as we explore the world of future-proofing your business. Without further ado, let's dive into the enlightening conversation with our esteemed guest, Lisa Levy. Hi, Lisa. Welcome to the podcast. I'm excited to talk to you because you're a systems person, you're a process person, you're a women in leadership person, and you have such a wonderful background and so much to teach us. So welcome to the podcast.
Angela, thank you so much for inviting me to this conversation. This is a great audience. I'm excited to have this conversation with you.
Thank you. I feel so lucky to just have this platform where I get to talk to women that otherwise I would be like, hey, what do you do? What are you working on? Have you written a book? So that's so exciting to have these conversations. So why don't you set the stage for us and tell us a little bit about your background and your new book?
Absolutely. So I am what I consider to be an accidental entrepreneur. It was never a goal. It was never anything that I thought that I was going to do. In fact, I would have shouted from the rooftops, this is not something I will ever do. My parents were entrepreneurs, and it's a roller coaster, the ups and the downs and the things. When everything is good, it's really good. And if it's not, it's really not. And so I thought I wanted to work in corporate, all right? I wanted to, my 40-hour weeks, a salary, paid time off, health insurance, retirement fund, all of these things. And I got them, and I had a dream job, and I hated it. So I, in a fit of grown-up temper tantrum, left what I thought was supposed to be secure, what was supposed to be everything I had always wanted, in a quest to do something different, to do something that aligned with my values, that gave me the ability to say, I would really like to work with you, and to make the decision that I really don't want to work with you. And it was life-changing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. That's a very familiar story, not only for myself having a corporate background, but so many women listen to this podcast. So I love being able to share that it can be done, and it doesn't have to be full of roller coasters. And we're going to talk about your methodology for not having so much chaos and being able to implement some systems. So can you talk about your new book and tell us what it is and future proofing Cubed?
Absolutely. So 14 years ago, this journey began, and I formed the company Lcubed Consulting.
Mm-hmm.
And right, it is 14 years of evolution and brought me to a framework
Mm-hmm.
that we call adaptive transformation. And I put it all in the book because there isn't actually a secret sauce to this.
Mm-hmm.
So the framework is based on leveraging project management, process management, internal controls, and organizational change management. These are best practices used by the largest corporations around the world.
Mm-hmm.
But what's really important about them are the skills and capabilities that individual people can learn, regardless of their role, regardless of their title, and use those skills to help better any business. And it does not have to be huge. A solopreneur can take these concepts and build them into how they run their business. The business operating model can start with one person. And so that was the foundation and why I wrote Future Proofing Cubed, was to share all of that with leaders, regardless of the size of their business. These tools will help.
I think that that's so important because, like you said, this is language and things that concepts usually that are applied to large businesses, and we don't think about applying it to a solo business or a small business. So I think that that's so exciting to challenge the way we're doing things to make it easier. And so can you talk about the 3 challenges that businesses often have?
Absolutely. So in my space, those 3 things that we talk about are clarity, enablement, and performance. And everything has to start with the why, right? Are we clear on what we're doing, why we're doing it, and heaven forbid, how we do it? With all of that, right, underneath this, so you're going to find that things in my world come in 3s, right? Lcubed, Future Proofing Cubed, I'm Lcubed, I am Lisa Levy. So underneath clarity, there are 3 important pieces. It's our people, our processes, and our technology. And we need to understand who our people are, what they do, how they do it, what they're good at, what they're not good at, and then how it is that they do work. What are the processes? And by process, I'm very specific in what I mean. Is it documented? Right? A process has to be repeatable to truly be a process. Otherwise, it's some really good people doing lots of things and they may be really good at it. But if it's not repeatable, it's not a process. So is it written down? And if it's written down, does everybody understand what it is and how it works? So I'm part of a process and I do work, Angela, and then I hand it off to you. You do something with it and you hand it off to the next person. Do we understand what happens before us and after us? And do we understand what that means to our customer? We don't really have process until we understand all of those things. So clarity is tied to our people, our processes, and technology. Enablement. This is where we put all of that into action. Is it effective? Is it efficient? Are we using those technology systems to let our people do more higher level thinking and let the systems do the rote and the repetitive, the things that can be automated? And this is where we start to bring in the idea of building self-reliance. So as leaders, we know that we are empowering our teams to do what they're supposed to do, to make decisions along the way. Sometimes they're going to be really great decisions. Sometimes they're going to go sideways, but that's okay. They made a decision, they took action, and we can course correct and learn at any point in time. The third part of all of this then is performance. Are we seeing the results that we're looking for? Are we getting the outcomes for our customers that we need for our business to grow and scale? All of these pieces come together, and it sounds like I've just rattled on for several minutes. It sounds really complicated, but I'm going to bring it back to the 3 core things: having the right people, doing the right work, and enabling it with technology. Once we get there, we have self-reliance in that business, and it is tuned to operate effectively.
Now, I think that that is so important to talk about because I think, especially if you come from a corporate environment, you have a tendency to recreate what you know, and you tend to kind of create something that you're working like terrible hours and everything's on you, and the business can't operate without you. You're not finding time in your business to do the higher thinking or just taking time off. So it is so important to do that. And I know my long legal career, I loved it when they started about, I don't know, 10, 15 years ago, really talking about applying project management principles to like litigation or anything that you did. And I'm like, I've been doing this forever. Where have you guys been? They thought I was like revolutionary. And I was like, hello. But can you help us kind of understand how we can use those project management principles to create processes?
Absolutely. So let's just start with the basic idea. What is project management?
Mm-hmm.
So projects are work efforts that we undertake most often to change something, bring in something new, change how we do things. But it's really important that a project has a specific beginning and a very specific end. These things do not go on forever. And for those of you who are listening, who have lived through, like, I don't know, a system implementation, you may think that I'm lying to you, but they really do not go on forever. There is an end, and there must be. Otherwise, there's something else. And those are called zombies, but that's not what we're talking about today.
Right.
So projects are work efforts where we're starting something and we want a specific outcome, and we have to plan what it is. Right. So we have to plan the work. We have to estimate how long that work is going to take, who needs to be involved, what are the tools, the resources, and build a plan around how we're going to do that. We need to understand what some of the obstacles and the challenges might be to achieving those goals so that we can plan our mitigation strategies and understand if something goes sideways, what do we do? That's in a really short version, an abbreviation of what project management is. And it's something that everybody can understand. For some reason, I find when I tell this, talk about this, I like my accounting clerks for some reason. An accounting clerk runs a process on a regular basis, but sometimes there are problems with receivables and they may have to conduct an audit. An audit is a project. That's all it is, right? You start something, you have an outcome that you're looking for, you plan the work, you do the work, and then you move on. Everybody can learn these skills. There's nothing secret to it. It's not super complicated, but we tend to, in larger corporations especially, silo it off and sequester it away someplace like it's super secret. Everybody can learn this stuff. And what does it do for our business? It gives us visibility into everything that's going on. It lets a leader understand who's doing something, what it costs, both in maybe in time and money, when it's going to be done, and what it's doing to drive the business forward. And if something pops up and you look at it as a leader and you go, why? It's also something you can stop if it's not important and it's not driving the outcomes that you really want. So if everybody thinks in terms of working in projects and processes, which I already went on my little soapbox that that's something that's documented and everybody understands what it is, right? We now have a lot of transparency and visibility into what people do day in and day out, where our people are investing time, where they're spending the business's money, and how they're serving our customers.
So let's say we've started implementing some of those project management principles. How do we put together how we start judging how we're doing those performance indicators? And then I was going to piggyback that with, I don't know if it's connected, but how do we know when we need to change our processes?
Okay, so we're going to take those in kind of two separate questions. Let's talk about the projects and what we're measuring, right? So the idea behind project management is to get things done, to get them done effectively and efficiently. And there are simple measures that we can start with. We said it was going to take us 90 days. Did it take us 60 days? Did it take us 120 days? Right? Then we start to learn how we're estimating time and how we're actually investing time. We said it was going to cost $100. It cost $500, right? What was the budget and how did we measure that? we thought we needed 5 people to work on it. We used 2.
Mm-hmm.
These are the simple measures where we can start to learn how effective and efficient we are.
Mm-hmm.
For those of you who know more about project management, you're going, oh my God, she is grossly oversimplifying everything that we do. Yes, I am, on purpose, because for this conversation, we're starting with the basics. And we don't need all of the very fancy calculations that go into becoming a certified project manager. We need to start with just understanding, are we on time? Did we have the right scope? Are we delivering what we said we were going to deliver? And who was involved? It's the basics. And that is more than enough for 80% of small businesses.
Yeah,
it gets more complicated when we talk about millions and tens of millions of dollars, right? There's a whole lot of things we can put underneath it. But for most of the stuff that we do, it doesn't have to be hard.
Right. No, and I mean, I was thinking of a couple of things when you were explaining that. Is one of the things that I've just seen is that most people might get a lot of the project management in place, but don't really think about what done looks like or the end point, which is super important. And then 2, it's like, I know we all have a cognitive bias towards more complicated is better. So I love that you simplified it for us because, you know, just like 3 is like a special number because our brain, you know, accepts it and goes, okay, I can handle that. So I appreciate, you know, the simplicity because we don't need to overcomplicate it. We don't need to make it hard. So did you have any other comments on how we can look at our processes and go, okay, we need to change that?
So now let's go from projects to process. In our processes, right? First, and again, this doesn't have to be, it doesn't have to be complicated. It doesn't have to be complex. A process needs to have a flow. You need to understand step 1, step 2, step 3, and it can be documented that simply, right? A list, a numerical list. It can be a really pretty little flow chart where we have boxes and arrows, and those are fun. And I like boxes and arrows. When you're creating them, it's sticky notes on a wall, right? All of these things are perfectly acceptable definitions of process. And then we have to understand why we do things. So once it's all sort of understood and on paper, taking it apart to understand the why behind it. Why do we have a report that has to be submitted on Fridays by 3 p.m.? Well, I don't know. That's the way Jane trained me to do it. Hey, Jane, why is there a report that has to be submitted by 3 p.m. on Fridays? Well, I don't know. That's how John trained me. Is John still around? Yeah, John's somewhere. Let's see. John, why is there a report that has to be submitted on Friday by 3? Well, I don't know. That's the way we've always done it. Well, why? If the answer is that's the way we've always done it, we have to take it apart further because I'm willing to wager for anybody listening $1 that the way we've always done it adds no value to anybody. And it's just something that somebody started 100 years ago and everybody has trained and repeated that going forward. The report at 3 p.m., I shared that example because it was real for me and a client where there were 15 different people who were killing themselves to get information to an individual to compile a report for the Friday by 3, because this document had to go into a shared drive on the network somewhere. And if it wasn't there, all of the automation in their system stopped working. When we peeled back the data that was in that report, it did nothing. You could have put a blank Word document in that folder by 3 p.m. on Friday and everything would have considered. There were nearly 80 man-hours of time invested in absolutely nothing.
Gosh.
So how do we improve our processes? And first and foremost, understanding why we do every step in them. And my favorite thing, and it depends right on the size of your business and how many people you have, and if there are enough people doing the same sort of tasks day to day, week to week. I love watching the person who seems to do the least, but always leaves on time.
Mm-hmm.
Because they're being very clever and they're being very efficient and they are working around the system in some way, shape, or form and getting more done in less time. And I want to know how they're doing it because I want everybody else doing that so that they can do more things.
Mm-hmm.
And so I call it looking for the lazy person. And I don't mean lazy in a bad way.
Right.
It's a clever person, but find them and emulate what they've done and how they've been doing it so that you can maybe have fewer people working on the same task and have other people doing different things that may add more value to them, to the business, to your customers. It's a tip and a trick on how we kind of shortcut process and figure out what works and what doesn't. We should always be asking why we do it.
I think so too, because you can just find yourself on a hamster wheel where you're just doing things just because, it seems like that's what, like you said, this is how we've always done it. And thinking about why you're doing it and the outcome and what it's doing for your business and your team. I mean, I'm sure that team was relieved to no longer be on this Friday at 3 p.m. deadline any longer. And that really segues nicely into my next question, which was about how this all formulates into building a team and the importance of that and keeping a strong team.
So earlier I talked about in that enablement component of business is building self-reliance. And I firmly believe that everything begins and ends with our people. And so having the right people doing the right work is key to everything because you can have a really good person doing the wrong job and catastrophe follows. But if we get the right people doing the right work and we understand what they're doing, we're able to empower and distribute decision-making. So we don't have to rely on a hierarchy. We don't have to have that one supervisor, manager, director, or whatever person owner of a business who has to have that final say in everything. In all of this, one of the great pieces that I like to play with is innovation. And the idea of constantly bringing new ideas into the business, having every employee have a voice into, wouldn't it be cool if fill in the blank? We brought this new product to market. We did a new service. We shut down something we've been doing forever because it's no longer meaningful. If we actually bring in the process of innovation, of ideating, of prototyping ideas, of testing and experimenting on those outcomes, we really get the opportunity for our people to shine forward. And that self-reliance and that ability to test and experiment and try things lets them know that they're valued and that it is okay to try something. It is okay for something to not work the way you thought that it could or should or would, as long as we learn from it and apply that learning to the next step that we take. Companies will organically grow and be able to scale with teams of people because now everybody has a voice in what's happening. And high performers are going to perform and they are going to bring other high performers in to play with them. And everything rises together.
Yeah, and I think it's so important, like for somebody who's building my own team, it was one of the most daunting aspects of growing a business. But it has been so relieving to create those processes and do, like you said, empower your team, because that is you're also empowering yourself to free up your time to, like you said, do more of the high level thinking. And I think it's something I see small business owners just do too late. If it's one thing that they wait too long to do, it's that. And so I hope that this episode will give them permission to think about it and put processes in place.
Well, and let's take that far, a little bit further for the small business owner, that founder who is growing things. there's a moment in all of it where there's that feeling of, I have to be able to take care of everything. I have to know everything. I have to be able to do it. And the moment we can get that thought to change too, I have a team of people around me who are smarter than I am, who are more capable than I am, who can do these things better than I ever could, because I have the ideas. I'm the visionary. I want to be playing in that space. As soon as I can let that go to that self-reliant team that I've nurtured up, I not only get more time back, I can work on the next thing. And one of the tantalizing questions that I like to ask my prospective clients is, as a business owner, as a founder, can you walk away from your business for 30 days, 60 days, 90 days, and know that your business will be operating and growing and behaving the way you expect it to when you come back? And until we can answer yes to 30, 60, and 90 days, we don't have the business engine running properly.
So is there like something that you think really keeps people from that mindset shift? Is there something you help them see to take that leap to be able to operate their business 30, 60, 90 days? I mean, because I am sure that is scary for a lot of people.
I think it's terrifying for a lot of people. And for when you contrast that to somebody who truly is and calls themselves and knows that they are a serial entrepreneur, they know it's imperative to be able to do that. So the first time, it's the fear, there's fear and there's uncertainty, right? We're messing with the baby and we love our baby, and we've grown, the baby has grown and it's a toddler now and it's walking, but it's still a little wobbly sometimes maybe. And right. And it's that's just sort of that fear of letting go as it's learning to ride a bicycle without training wheels. That's that first hurdle. But right, building this up on purpose, knowing that everybody understands who they are, what they do, where they play, what the measures are around it. We haven't really talked about in those processes the idea of internal controls, but those are those little moments in each process where there's big risk. And making sure that that's identified and understood, and that leadership knows if something goes wrong on this step, we need to dig in and revisit it. And so once all of those pieces are working and technology has automated the pieces that it can, right? The entrepreneur, that owner founder, we have to test with them and experiment for, a week, for 2 weeks, right? We kind of have to grow into that comfort zone because it's about trust. But once we have that team right, there comes a moment, and I've seen it, and it's, it's a little light bulb, it's a shimmer in the eyes, and they go, oh yeah, I'm going to the beach. Have fun. Sometimes things go, sometimes things go wrong, right? And that team has to figure it out, but they have all the skills and capabilities to do that.
Yeah. And you're good. Oh, probably like me, it's like you wish you would have just done it sooner, and moms and women especially, I think, have a hard time with it because they're used to taking care of everybody and, they just want to be copacetic, and change is hard, but it's so worth it in the end. And so one of the things you mentioned that I think is really important to talk about too is the innovation part and disruption, and being kind of on the forefront of that to, distinguish yourself in a crowded marketplace. It seems like there are so many businesses doing so many things now. So can you talk about the importance of managing disruption and not being scared of it, and how can we not be, scared of the chaos that it might seem like?
So this is so much fun. I love this topic because right now this is my passion project, disruption and innovation. So disruption has two flavors. The first is the things that happen that we have no control over. The pandemic, an economic downturn, a fire in the kitchen at a restaurant. Those are things that we have no control, right? They happen and we have to respond. And then there's disruption that we choose to create.
Mm-hmm.
And what we do with the two things is a little bit different, but I want to start with the disruption we choose to create because I find that empowering, right? That is challenging the status quo to make a positive impact. It's an active choice. And it's to do all of those other things that I was already talking about and looking at what we do in our business, understanding how we do things, why we do them, and ensuring that they're all tied to outcomes that are meaningful and valuable to our customers. When we put that customer or client at the center of our universe, we tune our business very specifically to drive results and outcomes. It lets us tear apart everything that the way we've always done it and remodel it in a way that is laser focused on that outcome of a happy or a client or customer who becomes a raving fan. And that drives innovation. And I talked a little bit about the idea engine and going through that whole innovation process. And that really is critical to companies and businesses being able to grow. But it all starts with leadership being willing to potentially change everything and reimagine and reinvent and continuously adapt. So that's where that other form of disruption comes into play, those pandemics and those economic downturns and those things that we can't control, because those scare us to death. And people will stop, bury their head in the sand, and oftentimes just hope, oh my gosh, please make it go away. But if we've already learned to be disruptive and to innovate and ideate and test and experiment, when the things go sideways, we're already ready to deal with them because we're already continuously adapting. And all of a sudden, it doesn't matter that it was unplanned, that it was unexpected, because the entire team knows how to sit down, go through an ideation session and figure out and plan the project to do the work to come up with that next outcome that we need to have. So if we start at the beginning on purpose, the things that are scary to us today, it all goes away.
That is so inspiring because, I mean, I think as moms, we are so well situated. We're constantly having to deal with the unexpected. And I like to remind moms and women of the leadership skills we already have that we don't give ourselves credit for. And one of those things is having to be adaptive and constantly being pragmatic with what's going on in our unpredictable lives every day. And two, oftentimes we are agents of change just starting our business. But so many times people focus on what they want. And it's so important to, like you said, focus on what your client wants and their client outcomes, because you will hit a wall. And oftentimes business owners can start creating content that's just for their, like what they think their clients want.
And that's a really important thing. And let's give this a moment of time, right? That brilliant idea in our head for our product, our service, our whatever, it may be the coolest thing literally since sliced bread. But if there isn't a customer base who wants to buy it, does that matter? Right. And the answer is no, it doesn't. And so that customer at the center, understanding what they want, what they need, right? Focus groups, ad hoc polls, standing on the corner in the mall, asking questions, however it is that you can elicit that input. A happy hour, a dinner party. There's lots of ways where we could just share ideas and get feedback as formally or informally as we need to. We need to know that what we think is cool has a client and a customer, that somebody's willing to pay money and transact on it, because otherwise you're creating content, you're spending on potentially on marketing, on prototyping. There's all sorts of different expenses that we can incur before we even know if there's a reason to. And so it's
yeah, like you said, I mean, doing your research and just simply having conversations. It doesn't need to be fancy. You don't have to hire a focus group. You don't have to get super crazy. It is literally with simple conversations with the people that you think are your ideal client that are going to really give you that juicy information that you need to actually make an impact and solve a real problem. So I love that reminder. Thank you for that. And I just think we're in a time with AI, and we're just in a wave of change right now, and it can be exciting. I don't want people to be scared of it, and I want them to see it as an opportunity instead of something that they can add to their fear excuses. So I love that reminder. So one of the things that I really love about you too is that you're passionate about women in leadership. So can you talk about some of the work that you've done? And you have a book that you participated in that is all about diversity and power, women empowerment. So yeah, talk about that.
So I came up into the corporate world in a time where women didn't have a seat at the leadership table, and we had to fight to get there. And I myself in an IT department was the first female director that they had ever had. Mm-hmm. I was the only one for the 5 years that I was with that team. Mm-hmm. And I didn't know at the time that that was like a problem. It just was what it was. And I was doing what I could do to build my career and do the things that were meaningful to me. That was a long time ago. And I've learned the hard way that what I did in that period of time was compete with women, was to tear other women down while they were trying to tear me down, because we were all jockeying to have a seat at a table where we weren't actually wanted. So over the past 5 years, and it sort of started ahead of the pandemic, but taking time to mentor and to help women in STEM grow up into actually, leadership roles, and encouraging and speaking with college students about women in technology, and debunking the myth that I was told when I was in high school that I wasn't that good at math because I was a girl and I should focus on language and arts. There's a lot of things that are just absolutely asinine, and the metrics for businesses show it. Women-led businesses have a greater success rate through the startup phase than most of the ones led by men. Even though we're only getting like 2% of the venture capital dollars, we're still running better businesses. In large corporations, we're never going to see parity in the C-suite. In the Fortune 500, I think it's a silly conversation to have because it's just not going to happen. But what we are having and what is happening is the groundswell of women-owned small businesses and the growth there. So that's 98% of our economy are small businesses. That Fortune 500 group, those big guys, right? That's like 2 to 5% of the overall businesses in the world. We have much greater impact in the smaller space, and that's where we're shining. So last year I did participate in writing Lady Diversity Power. It was a collection of essays from women around the world talking about their journeys and their experiences. The premise ties to diversity is the key to future success. We focused on female voices. It was all female lady authors, but diversity in all forms. And through that, I looked at, for my chapter, my contribution, telling the story of being the first woman at the table, but also the research in how I am an Anglo woman who sat at that table. If I had been an African-American woman trying to get to that table, the fight would have been twice as hard. If I had a double only, so I was the only woman, but if you double the only, if you triple the only, the exponential impacts in how hard that journey becomes in 2023 really irritates me. It disgusts me and makes me angry. And the way we change it is by starting and leading and growing our own businesses and doing it the right way, and delivering results and building diverse teams who deliver exceptionally well, because the diversity will lead to the exceptional.
100%. I don't know how many it's kind of myself included. I was tired of not getting invited to the table. And so it was like, I don't need this. Once you figure out your worth, that's the key point. And you're so right. It's incumbent on us when we start our businesses not to repeat that cycle and to make sure that we're including that diversity and not tearing other women down and making it an inclusive environment that is, helping to promote and, celebrate whatever talents everybody on your team has. So that is so important. So make sure you have processes in place, right, to do that.
Absolutely.
I think that is very important. And thank you for doing that work, because I tell my daughters, in the late 90s, I worked at a firm, and that was the first year women could wear pants. The world still needs a lot of work, but we have come a long way.
I remember having a job in a government agency, and if you wore a skirt or a dress, hosiery was required. I live in Phoenix, Arizona. Yesterday, or the past 3 weeks, it's been 118 degrees. Mm-hmm. Hosiery is like cruel and unusual punishment. And mm-hmm. that was probably in the year 2000, that rule was still a dress code issue. Mm. So it's not recent, but it's recent enough to make you go, oh my God, we have actually made progress.
Yes. And, when it comes to hosiery, I've lived in the West, and even though it's a dry heat, doesn't matter. Like, don't even tell me that. That's just, it's hard to believe that even in this millennia, we're still having these conversations, and we need to be having bigger conversations and it no longer being a topic. So I would love to hear what you would like anyone listening to this conversation, if anything, one thing really stuck with them that they take away from what you have to share, what would that be?
I think we've talked about so many things. For an entrepreneur, for a solopreneur, it doesn't matter how big or not big you see your mm-hmm. business being. What is most important is that you know that having a plan is critical. Mm-hmm. But knowing that plan is never actually going to work is more important. So being able to embrace uncertainty, the willingness to adapt and knowing how to adapt so that you can thrive. I think the adapting and thriving go hand in hand. And that's the takeaway, right? Plan it to the best of your ability and be ready for it to all go sideways, and be confident in your ability to adapt and keep moving.
I think that's absolutely one of the key things as an entrepreneur, is to embrace the uncertainty and trust yourself that you can handle it. We do it, so often in our personal lives, and we don't even realize it. We're good at it. We can do it for sure. So where can listeners connect with you and get your book and all of that good stuff?
Absolutely. The easiest way to find me is I'm a LinkedIn girl. So Lisa L. Levy on LinkedIn, and LisaLLevy.com will take you to a page that describes some of my coaching practice. And at my podcast website, disruptandinnovate.com, there's an opportunity to download a free gift, a PDF about the 7 mistakes you need to avoid in order to adapt and thrive. So several of the things we talked about will be available to you there. And on that same website, there is if you have a question and something popped into your mind, you can press a button, record a message to me, and I will be able to respond to that.
That's awesome. I think that's incredible, because we need to be on the forefront of innovation. We're just so well positioned to do that. So I love that you're going to give us a takeaway that we can look at, and that's awesome. And I'll leave links to all of that in the show notes for anybody that wants to check it out. And I recommend that they do. Thank you so much, Lisa, for sharing your wisdom. I know we did cover a lot. I was like, she knows so much. I want to cover, the basics so we can really walk away with some actionable things that we can do in our businesses. So thank you so much for your time.
Absolutely, my pleasure. Thank you for letting me share my stories with your audience.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you. Thank you for joining us on this insightful episode of the Good Enough Mompreneur Podcast featuring Lisa Levy, the founder of Future Proofing Lcubed. And I am going to leave all of her contact information in the show notes and a link to her podcast. We hope that you found this inspirational and valuable and empowered you on your entrepreneurial journey. Remember, the key to future-proofing your business lies in embracing change, recognizing challenges, and leveraging your unique strengths. Lisa's expertise has certainly shed light on these important aspects. If you're eager for personalized guidance and support on your mompreneur journey, don't hesitate to reach out. Visit us at mombusinesscoach.com for a wealth of resources, coaching, and a supportive community that understands the joys and challenges of being a mompreneur. We're here to help you thrive and find balance in your life and business. Stay tuned for more enlightening conversations with incredible guests. And as always, you're not just a mompreneur, you're a force of change, making an impact in your own unique way. Thank you for joining us today. And until next time, keep chasing your dreams and embracing the journey of motherhood and entrepreneurship. We are all applauding you. Thank you so much for tuning in to this episode, and I cannot wait to talk to you next time. Until then, bye.